Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Daffy's Roundtable. Who doesn't love crocodiles, am I right? Now, while I definitely do not recommend them as pets, some people do have the space, the facility, the means to house them and work with them. And so today, we learn all about keeping crocodiles and alligators in captivity. And who better to teach us than Chris Dieter, owner of Crocodile Encounters in Houston and writer of the ultimate guide to crocodiles in captivity. Chris has successfully kept and bred many different species of crocodilians and was even the first person to breed the Chinese alligator in captivity in over 20 years. We also talk about how smart crocodiles really are, their behavior, and training them. This was a fascinating episode to record, and I think you're all going to really enjoy it. I also want to give a quick shout out to Nate from the Croccast podcast. He was actually the person who reached out about Chris and put me in contact. So thank you very much, Nate. And of course, I want to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this podcast and making this episode possible. Exoterra makes quality products for our pet reptiles to make them feel at home. All right, without further ado, everybody please help me welcome Chris Dieter of Crocodile Encounters. Chris, hello.
How are we doing?
Good, how are you? Thank you very much for coming on. I'm super excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, glad to be here. It was an interesting hookup to get here.
Yeah. It always is. Matching schedules is always super hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so obviously you are the owner of Crocodile Encounters in Houston, Texas, and we're gonna get into all of that. But before that, how did you get into reptile keeping in general?
Probably like most reptile keepers, I've been doing it since I was like 3 or 4, and in my case, I really like Godzilla, and so it just kind of started from there. And I had really great parents. They like every reptile guy, you go around, you collect turtles and stuff like that. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so it wasn't exactly a hotbed of herpetofauna, but there's some good species there. So I spent a lot of time catching snapping turtles and painted turtles and box turtles and wood turtles, that kind of stuff. And it just kind of, I always tell people, some people like to get bigger, faster cars. I just wanted bigger, faster reptiles, so.
That's a good way to put that. I like that. Yeah.
Escalating, so that's kind of how we ended up here. So.
Yeah, and when did it sort of transition into hobbyist to I'm going to do this full time and open? I guess Crocodile Encounters is sort of like a zoo.
Yeah, it's a zoological facility. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting. It never was intended to be per se. It was just kind of like it just really is a giant manifestation of, like I just told you, my interests, my passions through a lifetime with these animals. And so what happened was it was really, people just started asking me, hey, can we come and see this, or can we come and see that? And so over time, it just kind of developed. We kept my Now Crocodile original group, and I would come in after feeding them all the time, and it'd be muddy in the house. My wife said, hey, why don't you stop bringing mud in the house? So we had a section of boardwalk we created to where I could just walk right to them without, getting anything muddy. And it just kind of went from there. And so you have one section of boardwalk, then you have another section of boardwalk. And before you know it just, and then more people come, and you got to have restrooms, and, you got to have pavilions for them to eat lunch. It's just, it just kind of mushrooms, And then we had a really good reputation forming in the zoological community. So right now our partners are almost 100% other AZA facilities. So we're kind of like considered an AZA affiliate. And so it's opened some pretty good doors for us in regard to getting species that, you wouldn't otherwise have. And likewise, we send offspring and animals like that to the other facilities, so we have a rotational thing with alligators and now crocodiles with a lot of places throughout the country. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you are breeding crocodiles and alligators and all that then?
Yeah, the alligators kind of they kind of do their own natural thing. We don't like set aside, like we keep about 50 alligators out here of various sizes, and our main group of crocodiles is now crocodiles. That's the most that we have. There's probably like 150 of those, and then like I said, we have about 50 American alligators, but when they reproduce, since we're a part of their native range here, we just let them hatch naturally. They'll form their nests and whatever happens. It's not really If they breed, they breed. If they don't, they don't. But they breed every year, so we find nests out there and like that, and we just kind of let nature take its course in that because we're literally within their natural range. I mean, you can go any direction from where I'm at right now, and we have a canal behind our facility, and there's wild alligators in it. So I mean, it's not.
Wow.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you don't collect the eggs at all. You just let them kind of hatch and run around wherever they
for
want.
American alligators, but like say for Chinese alligators or something like that, we do go collect the eggs there. And it comes to now crocodiles. Right now, since we have so many, we're not actually breeding them per se. So what we'll do is we typically tend to destroy the nests when we find them, or we just don't incubate the eggs at all. And because you get a couple crocodiles, it quickly becomes 150 crocodiles.
For sure.
Yeah. And so we're kind of a female heavy group, and it doesn't take that much to really get a lot of crocodiles. So. We will start recommence breeding now crocodiles probably in either next year or the year after. We have a morph that we're going to kind of prove out a little bit, and we call them T positive albinos, and because it's kind of like what fits best for them. But we really don't exactly know what the gene is. We imported them from Africa. They're absolutely stunning animals.
Like all white.
They're bright yellow, like a highlighter.
Bright yellow. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also got a white bottom. And they progressively turn white as they get older. It's just an interesting gene.
And these are the Nile crocodiles.
These are Nile crocodiles.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting gene. So we brought in a group from Africa, and they're just now getting old enough to where we'll be able to get a shot at breeding them. It's probably next year will be shot number 1. So we'll see.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a cool animal.
Yeah, and do you frequently import crocodiles and alligators?
No, actually, it's those couple times we did it because we were just looking to get. These were just so spectacular. We just went ahead and did it. But we have a really good couple friends over there, and when they find that particular gene, they ask they'll send it over to us if we want to go ahead. But now I think we can create our own. So I really don't think we'll do a whole lot of importation there at all anymore. So.
That's super cool. So you mentioned the Chinese alligators as well. What is the story with them? How were they hard to bring in? Are they commonly bred in America?
We're part of the AZA program with those, and so I've been keeping Chinese alligators for probably 20 years. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we got a new female sent to us. So they hadn't been bred in the United States for 2 decades, and but where we're at, just again, we're just like we're a part of the natural range for the American alligator, and so the Chinese alligator here is it's super easy to maintain. And so we put the female with the male, and we honestly thought she was too small. We thought we'd have to wait 2 years for her to gain size, but they bred the first year, so we're the first people in 20 years to do it here, and then they bred 5 straight years in a row. So but now we changed males, so we're hoping to see a nest. Within the next 2.5, 3 weeks, actually, because she usually lays about June 10th and 15th. So we're getting pretty close to her day. So we'll see how it goes this year. So
that's awesome. And so is that how it works? Where you kind of like through the AZA, you're getting different males and different females to work with, and you're kind of all trading around.
Yeah, it kind of works like that, and to some degree. So what happens is initially they're just really limited space. For a lot of city zoos, and we're basically a 100-acre facility. We have 26 on this side. We have 75 across the road. So we have a lot of space. And so what happens is a lot of these facilities, if you're a city zoo, like I just said, a crocodile, you have 2 crocodiles, it makes 100 really quick. Well, if they get 1 breeding, and they get 15, 20 babies, or even 10. It's not that many years before you're looking at having 10-foot animals or more, depending on your species. And that just really taxes a city facility that's actually only been designed to hold a pair. And so they need places for them to go. And so if you have space and you can kind of get your foot in the door, and then if you do well, you can, you build your reputation, and then the floodgates kind of open for, a lot of different things. So that's why I always tell people, I said, don't chase an animal, make your facility as good as possible, and you'll be surprised what needs homed, eventually. So Bless you.
Thank you. So first of all, that's super cool. But jumping back to the Chinese alligators, are they smaller inside? I'm just looking at pictures
Oh
right
yeah, they're a lot
now.
smaller.
Adorable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the pints. I like the chihuahuas of all that. So, like the American alligator can get to 14 feet. Most of them are going to be 10 or 12 feet, but they can weigh, anything from 400 to 1,000 pounds. Whereas a Chinese alligator, they're going to stick around for the most part around 4 feet. I think our female's probably 3.5, maybe a little bit more. Our male's probably 4-ish. They
Wow.
can get a little bit bigger than that. I mean, historically, they can maybe get to 6 foot. I've never seen one even remotely that big. Maybe in a picture I have, but as far as a live animal, I think 4 or 4.5 feet is probably as big as I've seen. They're very diminutive animals, and honestly, in a lot of ways, they'd be the perfect crocodilian for if you're gonna have private keepers. Keep them because they're cold tolerant. They're actually they're punchy, but they actually calm really well, and they're not very big, So they're really and they're temperature tolerant. I mean, they down here we don't do anything with them temperature wise at all. If we freeze, and they don't care. So I mean,
Wow.
that doesn't bother them at all. So
And what about the other species you keep? Do you have to bring them inside on like
yeah, we have
extremely
all
cold days?
yeah, we have not on cold days, but if you're gonna have because we have these big enclosures. I mean, some of our enclosures are like an acre big. I mean, we have one that
Wow.
simulates like a river. It's like it's longer than a football field. I mean, so it's 300 feet of just
Wow.
awesome. And so we keep a group of Nile crocodiles in there. But so yeah, the water volume for the most part creates a lot of temperature stability because water is a heat sink, and but what will happen is if you have a particularly bad winter, if you do happen to have a snow, the snow could melt into the pool, and then it works against you. It takes a long time for that water to increase in temperature also. So we run wells to heat the water, and this year we're actually creating a brand new boiler system for them to where we can have a hot water return like 120, 130 degrees. So even if it would snow, we can just crank that temperature up and it won't make a difference. So because we're trying not to bring them inside this year.
For sure. Yeah. I bet it's a lot of them to bring inside.
They get big, and it's a lot safer for the animal just to have heated water, So,
Yeah.
but so we're having a boiler system designed, and we used to do this. We used to have a wood burning boiler system that we would heat the water, and it worked really well. And we kind of went away from it with the buildings. We started bringing them in the wintertime, and because honestly, I just got tired of going out there and putting wood in the system overnight. But so this one's going to be a propane fired system, and it's much more efficient because when you keep giant reptiles, and particularly you keep them outdoors, and you probably know this, when you're from a cold environment up there that you kind of it can be labor intensive to some degree, and it's just if you have a lot of animals, it becomes a pretty big undertaking, and so it's just a lot easier if you can push a button, make the water warm, and go to bed.
No, for sure. Is there any other systems that you have in place on at the facility that kind of make it easier for you to run it with that many animals?
Yeah, I mean all the buildings are climate controlled. We have catches in place, that are like the animals. When we go to capture, we don't have to pull them out of the water. They'll come up on a deck. We close a gate, but then we capture them. It's very controlled. There's a lot of measures. Like, as a matter of fact, before we went on here this evening, there's this Nile crocodile we're moving from one enclosure to the other, and rather than we try to make it as least stressful as possible. It takes a little bit more time. So tonight I was out there, and I'm training him to come up on this into the catch. And so if he sees a group of people there, I mean, he's going to be wary. And so I'll go out myself and I'll feed him, and he'll come right with me, and he'll come right into the catch. And you do this for 2 or 3 days in a row, and then like on the third day, you just pull the door shut behind him, and then he's in the catch. And then my team and I would go in and we'll rope him and we'll pull him where we want to. But it's just so much easier,
Wow.
yeah. And so we do that a lot. And some of the enclosures, they're adjacent. So when we move an animal, we just open up one lock gate, and then let them go into the other lock gate, and that kind of thing. So, and some of it, like the alligators, you don't have to really worry about it. They kind of just do their own thing because we don't ever catch and move them. It's just, they're always, again, because they're in their native range, you don't have to bring them in or anything like that. But the saltwater crocodiles, the Orinoco crocodiles, or our Cubans, they have indoor-outdoor things now, so they can actually come inside and outside. And so right now they all pretty much stay outside, but they have a draw door, and so their pool is actually on the inside. And so when they want to come inside, and so one day in October or so they'll come inside to eat or something. We just drop the door down, and then they're inside. They do all the work for you there. So.
And they stay inside for the duration of winter?
Yeah, which here is about, it can vary. It can be as little as 3 weeks to 2 months.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. I wish.
So
that's about as much summer as we get.
Yeah, so last winter was really mild. They were only inside for like 3 weeks. We didn't even put them in until January, and then they came right back out. I think first or second week of February. So
that's
No, it's not always like that, but it was last winter was pretty mild. 2 years ago, I think it was, that we had that horrible freeze down here where all the power went down in Texas, and that was a real challenging time, because then we had to run generators and such like that, just to make sure we had enough heat in the buildings. The buildings are all heavily insulated, so it doesn't take a lot to heat them up, but just to make sure we stayed stable enough not to lose animals, because you get a bad thing like that, and your temperatures drop down, you're going to start losing a lot of animals. So.
Yeah, for sure. So you're mentioning buildings and you're mentioning the outdoor and stuff. So kind of maybe can you give us a bit of a run through of what the facility looks like and what else you're keeping in the buildings, or is it all crocodiles?
Oh no, it's not all crocodiles. We have the building, the facility, like I said, on this side, the crocodile side is 26 acres. It's all interconnected by boardwalk. The enclosures are, anywhere from half an acre to over an acre in size, and they have big multiple pools that are shaped. Some are shaped like U's, some are shaped like L's. Just to control territoriality in the animals. We have feeding decks on a lot of them, just so that the crocodiles will come over, because we're a public facility. People like to see the crocodiles eat. So they'll come over to eat, and it helps with the training and the animal maintenance and everything. But the 4 buildings are here. We have one that's called the hot house, where we keep our hatchlings and younger animals. Then we have another building which is kind of like the for larger animals. There's 2 buildings that are for larger animals that we bring in for the winter. The one also has some smaller, mid-sized stuff on it. And then we have another building that is our Cuban crocodile building that has got the sliding doors. That's where they're over there. But we also keep a variety of lizards and snakes and turtles and tortoises. The turtles and tortoises, for the most part, they have their own barns and stuff like that, so they're not really in those buildings. So, but we keep monitor lizards. We have Komodo dragons. We have a pair of those, and So,
you said a pair?
We have a pair. Yeah.
Have you ever had any luck breeding them?
They're young still, so we won't really know anything about that for a while, I wouldn't think. So.
Yeah.
That's a really amazing species, though. It's really kind of grown on me a lot. For a long time, I didn't think we'd actually really, because we kept a lot of monitors. We keep blue tails, and I used to breed waters, and we kept crocodile monitors, and we bred black throats and argus, and just a lot of different species. And I never really found Komodos all that appealing, because I always thought they were just kind of a big blah lizard, But I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong, and they just that's a really incredible animal, both in terms of personality and just behaviorally, and they're actually really colorful. Our male is really golden. He's a really pretty animal. So,
wow. Yeah, are they as smart as people say they are? Or
they're bright. No reptile is as bright as a crocodile. Crocodiles and alligators are by far your smartest reptiles, and there's a biological portion to that. They have the cerebral cortex, so that they have the most well-developed cerebral cortex of any reptile, and it's not even close, actually. It's actually their brain is bird-like. So I always tell people, if you want to know exactly how smart a crocodile is, if I told you would teach a parrot to talk and teach a parrot, people say, "Oh, my parrot's really smart, knows all this stuff, it recognizes you and all that." Crocodiles have almost that identical structure in their brain. So crocodiles identify people very well. They learn routines very well. They learn very, very well. And as a keeper, you actually have to be aware of this, because if you make a mistake multiple times in a row, that crocodile is going to key to that. You can really put yourself in a very disadvantaged position. Now back to the Komodo. Komodo appears to be the most intelligent monitor lizard that I've kept. I mean, it's also a matter of their boldness. That's an animal that evolved on an island where it is literally the top dog. I mean, it is just, and it knows it. I mean, from like a young age. I mean, it just knows it. Whereas other monitors that I've kept, I mean, they're like water monitor is a very big animal. I mean, it's a good sized animal. So you can get 50, 60-pound water monitor, and some of them even heavier than that. But they're not the top beast where they're from, and so they have a wariness to them that is just totally absent in a Komodo. I mean, it's just not there. I mean, the Komodo is just a totally bold animal, and ours, like when they were little, they move away from you a little bit. And they're still little, I mean, in terms of like what they'll be. I mean, he's probably 5-ish foot right now, and she's probably 4.
Wow.
He's just starting
That's
to
little.
Yeah, he's just starting to get his like size to him, but he's got a double lengthwise. And but man, he's not scary at all. I mean, it's just almost, and neither is she for that matter. I mean, it's almost a little unnerving that they just come right at you. You have to be prepared for it because, and I tell you what, I actually think they're more difficult to deal with, and ours are really nice. So don't get me wrong, but a 9 or 10-foot Komodo dragon is a much more difficult animal to contend with. And I have many now crocodiles at 9 and 10 feet. I mean, I have a lot of them, and if you're not at the water's edge, maybe 15 feet back, you don't have anything to worry about from a crocodile. I mean, he's not going to land chase you or anything like that. He doesn't get you on that first burst, or, even when I'm feeding them and they know our game, they'll burst out at me briefly. They'll stop, and then they'll come forward to the bucket, and they'll stop. But if you're not feeding them, that's about as far as you're going to get them, as far as that. The Komodo, totally different, man. They run.
They'll chase you.
Yeah, and they just run. They're fast. I mean, they're really fast across land. So, I mean, that 15-foot gap you got right there, it's just not enough with that dragon. I mean, it's just, it's an interesting animal. I mean, it really, and their heads are so big. I mean, they just have a big head. It's just a big head.
How do you count? Like you said, 15 foot is not enough running space. How do you keep yourself safe, or what do you?
Well, ours are small enough that you can. I mean, it's really not a concern, but as we're actually planning out their adult enclosures now as we speak, and what you do is you just build a shift into them, and so if everything works out according to plan, they maintain their calmness into adulthood, and. But there has been quite a few Komodo, what I would, you would call them accidents in zoological facilities over the last, decade, where there's been where the dragon doesn't necessarily attack, but it does almost like a taste bite or, something like that, and it's almost always on the ankle or a foot or something like that because, they're down at that level and they just have such tremendous teeth. That it's I know we were talking about this as a staff the other day because we were just doing some stuff. And a crocodile's bite, their teeth are big and long, but it's not really meant to tear you up. It's meant to act as an anchor. And so when a crocodile comes up and everybody's seen how they grab a wildebeest or something like that off a bank. Well, they don't really tear chunks with that. They grab hold, those teeth sink in. It's a 5,000 pound of pressure, strongest bite in the whole world. And all he wants to do is pull that animal down the water and drown it. And then when he gets down the water, he holds that anchor and he spins his body like a rotor. And that rotational aspect of the crocodile tears a chunk of the meat off then. And then he goes ahead and he swallows the animal. He swallows his meal. The dragon is totally different. It's got these just mouthful of serrated knives. And so when he bites, they do tear a chunk. He's looking at it slices you right off. And so you do not want to get bit by a Komodo dragon. It just if it was just biting you, it'd be just that. But when he bites, and not only that, their head is just so big, it just slices a chunk off. There's even just the most minimal bite. It's just really, really damaging. And so that's you have to keep that in mind, even if you have a friendly dragon. You want to. And most dragons do actually get pretty calm, and from what I can tell, because I've been in with several big ones at other zoos, and they've been very relaxed animals. Even as unnerving as it is. I had a 10-foot one, probably 200 pound plus, just walk right up and sniff my shoe, and it just, it's just
How do you stay still in that? Yeah.
Yeah, you're going like, okay, I mean, and its head's, like I said, wider than my foot, and it's just, and you just sit there and you go,
Crazy.
okay, I don't want to be one of those numbers that they're telling you like a zoo accident, like that. But
Yeah.
I tell my son it's curfew here if he asks me. So
Yeah. No worries. Take your time. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so it's very
It's fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a cool species. I don't think it's something I'll ever get to keep or work with, but that's yeah, incredible species for sure.
yeah, like other animals too, like the blue tails. I mean, they have tremendous teeth too. Crocodile monitors have tremendous teeth. You don't get
Yeah,
bit
I
by.
hear that about croc monitors a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference is with a crocodile monitor or a blue tail, I could pick it if I had to, throw it against the wall. The Komodo dragon, and they very I weigh 210 pounds, and they can weigh more than me.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
mean, that's a really big difference in terms of what you're talking about there. Your crocodile monitor is 30, 40 pound animal. It's just not very big. Blue tail 15 pounds at most. I mean, it's just they're impressively colorful and all that. But you're talking a Komodo dragon is a totally different machine.
Yeah.
It's got the weapons that they have on a much grander scale. The entire animal is just a much grander animal. So
For sure. For sure.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so jumping back to what you were saying earlier about how smart crocodiles are, and you mentioned also you were saying that once you want to move it or do anything, you kind of you train it for 2 or 3 days and then it picks it up.
Yeah.
And also online, I see all these like videos of people teaching them commands of like hold still, open
Oh
open
yeah.
your mouth or whatever. So like, yeah, how much work does it take to kind of get a
Not
crocodile?
much. Yeah, I see those same videos all the time, and I always tell people, we need to put out more videos like that because they get all these views and everything like that.
Yeah.
They pick up routines so quickly that it's really not much. I don't want to say it's not a challenge because I mean, obviously you're dealing with an animal that it's always going to be challenging, but if you're consistent, you will get where you want to go with them, and much quicker than you anticipate. Like we had an enclosure, and it had this is my old group of Nile crocodiles, but it had probably 10 animals in the enclosure. These were all 8 to 11 foot Nile crocodiles, just big, thick, heavy-bodied animals, and I could get them in a line and line them up all like
Wow.
this, and they would all and they would just from consistency. And I'd use a feed bucket as the like where they couldn't cross.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the same bucket color or anything like that. I mean, you would put the bucket there. They would start, and you would say hold, and they would all line up and hold, and you would just be able to feed it. It's the craziest thing in the whole world. And this was so long ago, but this was before like any social media stuff really popped up. Like 20 plus years ago, and man, it would just be a great picture now to actually see it. And so we have another group I've been working with a little bit with. I just haven't taken the time to progress them to that level, but it is very, very possible to train them to do just about whatever you want them to do. And it actually makes you a lot safer.
Yeah,
You're
for sure.
a wild scene all the time. I actually think, all crocodilians should be trained to some degree. Just for keeper safety alone. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just vet checkups or anything anything goes
exactly.
wrong and needs to do something. Absolutely. No, that definitely makes sense.
They get wary, if you don't do it. Like the one I'm doing, the one, long story short, the one we're moving from an enclosure now, we had moved not all that long ago, and so they don't usually like the moving procedure. It's just something no animal likes that, and so you basically have to rebuild the trust over again. And so that's what I'm doing with this animal now. I'm rebuilding the trust, and it'll just take a couple of days. I actually got him really far today, so I don't think it would take that much longer at all. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, so I should have phrased this question. So other than you mentioned Nile crocodiles, Chinese alligators, all
yeah.
those things. Are there any? I guess are there any species that you're working with that are also endangered or that were rarer, harder to breed that you're kind of working with now?
Well, one of our main projects here, we actually have 2 more of these coming on Saturday, is we have Tomistoma, and it's the false gharial.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a group of 6 now, and we have 2 more coming on Saturday. So we'll have a group of 8. And with our pairs, there's 3 unrelated pairs there. So we have, and ours are still relatively small. They're probably like 6-foot animals, maybe. I think, and there's 2 of them are smaller than that. So, but over the next couple of years, that's going to be a really big program that we do here. So I would say probably, if I was going to guess, our first breeding of those would be maybe, let's say this is 2024, maybe 2026. We'll be able to take a run at them, maybe 2027. But, that's the other thing, too, with croc projects. I mean, I was telling my son this the other day.
Yes.
Like, you get a lot of reptile projects, and it's kind of, you get tangible results kind of quickly. Like if you get snakes, or you get a baby snake, a year and a half, you get a chance to reproduce that snake. Geckos kind of the same way. You get some tangible results. Crocodiles are kind of like I would say some tortoise projects in this regard. Is that it's just it takes a lot of patience with them. And it's somewhat frustrating at times because there's just so much can go wrong. While you're keeping them, you can have these plans. You can say, okay, well, we'll breed these things in 2026 or whatever. And along the way, this animal kills that animal, or these 2 animals don't get along. And I mean, you have a winter that comes on, it just blows everything up. I mean, there's just so many things, that can happen, because you're dealing with just all this time, and it takes a lot of pain. And that's why I think so few people do it. It takes so much space to do it. It just takes a lot of space to do it. But
yeah, if it didn't take, I mean, obviously, or I guess I shouldn't say if it didn't take all the space. If more people had the space, would you recommend them as pets?
no,
obviously not everyone's gonna. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, awesome. Okay, good answer. Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't be, and I got my first one. I was probably 21, maybe 22, and I had everybody gets a Cayman. Back in the day, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but how old are you?
26.
Oh, you're super young, man. Yeah, so I'm 54. And so back when I was your age, everybody got Cayman. Were in like literally every pet store known to man, good, bad, ugly. I mean, Walmart probably even had them in their aquarium section, and they were like $30. So everybody had a Cayman. 99.9% of those Cayman had just lived horrible lives. They died really quickly. You also used to have a lot of baby alligators for sale and stuff like that. But I got my first crocodile. I was probably like 21, something like that, 22. And of course, at that time, I mean, I'm just, I'm some Yahoo, and probably had no business getting a now crocodile whatsoever. If you're looking at just the sheer math of it, the people that can actually keep now crocodiles successfully, I mean, it's like keeping a great white shark in your bathtub. I mean, it's just, it's admittedly almost an insane thing to even contemplate. If you actually sit down, if you're not a reptile guy and you think about it, it's probably the dumbest idea you possibly could think about. I mean,
absolutely. Even as a reptile guy, I think.
I mean, it really is. But having said that, I guess in the way the math works out, we ended up being the 0.001% that actually were able to keep them and pull it off and keep them well and give them a high quality of life. And that's kind of where we sit. I mean, because it was always important for me that we give the animal a high quality of life. And so once I got them, it was never, I'm going to get rid of them. I mean, I've been like synonymous with now crocodiles in America probably for 30 years. So we bred more of them than anybody. We keep more of them than anybody. But the whole thing is we've always wanted them to have a really good life. We didn't want to keep them in a that's why every time we've moved to buy more property or something like that, the crocodile enclosures just get bigger, and that's why they have and I'm not even done. I mean, I sit there and go, okay, this like that one I told you is like a football size enclosure. That's a cool enclosure, man. It's like got a mountain ridge behind it. They got dens in there. I mean, they nest on top of the hill. It's super cool, man. And they swim through different depths. I mean, you need to come down and see it. It's a blast.
I would love to. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah,
open invitation. But I look at it, and the person who works with me, Jade Rio, she's been with me since she was 13, and she's 30 something now, and she goes, we need to make this even bigger, just even a big. So we're just always trying to make it just better for them, and so it's just that kind of thinking is always just where we go with it. And I think when I see some people, and I don't begrudge them doing it, it's just it's an intelligent animal. They love to dig. they like to swim. That's another big thing that I didn't want them just where we were keeping them where they would just like flop in the water,
Just float in their place.
pull them back and come back up. I didn't want that. If we weren't going to be able to keep them to where they could swim and move around and that, then we wouldn't keep them. We'd switch to something else or do something else. But so we figured out with great expense. I mean, it's not been cheap or anything like that. I mean, how to do it and. And it's been a school of hard knocks for a lot of years too. I mean, it has. I always tell people, I've bred more of them than anybody, but also killed more of them in the process too. I mean, we've learned through attrition on some of it. So
For sure.
yeah,
For sure. And then so obviously, as you said, it's very unfortunate, but in a lot of places that is how you see them, in very shallow pools, kind of just sitting there floating in place, coming out maybe too fat to like even move around. Have you started to see, or not started, do you see a lot or like a wide diversity of behaviors because of giving them all the space?
Oh yeah, our animals have no idea they're even in captivity, so we see
Okay,
it
awesome.
all. Yeah, I mean they have no.
Yeah, you mentioned digging as well. I've never even
Yeah,
heard
they
that.
do
Yeah.
everything. The only thing we see that is, well, I would even and you'll see this even in wild animals. Like if you feed a wild crocodile or wild alligator, it just becomes a nuisance animal. So ours behave kind of what you would consider a nuisance animal would be that has been fed by people. I mean, like but otherwise they behave totally like wild animals, which just, there's no. I mean, when they don't want to be with us, they don't come over to see us. They'll stay at the other side of the other side of the pool or whatever, and it's like tonight. There's 10 crocodiles in that enclosure. 2 of them came down to see me. So I mean, the rest of them were. It's also mating season here, so a lot of times they're kind of staying away now for that. Love is in the air.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're too busy for you.
Yeah, so you see that a lot this time of year.
Yeah, and can you tell like which two came down to see? Can you differentiate between the
Oh
10?
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. They have
okay.
different patterns, different size, different face structures, that kind of thing. So.
That's fascinating. And then on the topic of you're trying to give them that good life, the best you can give them, and all of that. You have also written a book called "The Ultimate Guide to Keeping Crocodiles in Captivity," I
Yeah, that
believe.
was like 20 years ago. It's interesting, Brad. I have the new edition on my computer right now, and it's been on my computer for like half a decade. And
Okay.
the first one was just. And here's how that came about. There was no real good manual like I said, when I was keeping them as a younger guy like your age. There was no real good manual for this. So I was writing for Reptile Hobbyist magazine. I had a monthly column there called Hefty Herps because it was just for keeping big reptiles. So I was keeping big reptiles.
Awesome.
And so I was writing that, and I just said, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and see if we can create a little kind of manual for people that want to keep them and don't want to keep them just like old school in like a little tub or anything like that. And so I went around, I saw a lot of facilities, put that information back together, and there you go. That's what it was. But now I created the new book, which is going to be called Crocs Alive. It's just enormous. It's like 350 pages. So, and a lot of that stuff that I did back then, I don't even agree with anymore. So,
Well, that's a good thing though, right? Because then that means you're learning as the keeping is going. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, the old book is kind of like incorporated into the new book a little bit, like some of the skeleton of it. I went back and said, I don't even agree with that anymore. I mean, it's just kind of weird. It's almost looking at a time capsule or something.
So what are some of the things that you frequently see other keepers doing that you think is a bad idea? Or what are some other things in the book that you don't agree with?
Pond is number one. I mean, they do this. Anytime you see like somebody got a pond that's round and they're trying to keep multiple animals in it, they really, or it's just a square, they're really not like thinking crocodile mentality, because the crocodile, the best way to keep them is in like either S's or T's or L's.
Where they can see each other.
Yeah, they break up the sight lines, and this crocodile will take this side of the L, this crocodile will take that side of the L, or they'll take the T. Or, it just makes a difference in and even sometimes that's not even enough to stop a really truly territorial animal. He'll try to take the whole thing, but some species are better than that than others. But it just tells you right there that it's a kind of a giveaway that they know what they're doing or not. So
Yeah. What about feeding? Do you think that most people are overfeeding them? And what do you feed yours and how frequently?
Well, our primary diet here is the Missouri crocodilian diet. But we have a lot, and then every day on tour, we use chicken for the feed for them. Some of our animals are on rodents only. So it just kind of depends on where they're at in their life cycle. If you have a young crocodile, I don't think you can really overfeed it too much. They just, particularly in the heat here in Texas, if you right from time like say from April till late October, maybe even early November, you can almost feed that crocodile as much as you want because they just turn it into growth, and it's very possible to go from 1 foot to 4 foot in 1 year if they in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not out of the question at all for a well-fed animal to do that. Now, after that, with each stage, it's almost like with people, like I have two teenage kids, and they can eat all the crap they want. They can sit there and eat a bag of chips, followed up with a bunch of candy, drinking a liter of Coke, and they'll be just fine. But you do that at 26, you might end up with a little different physique than they're going to have. And for me at 54, I definitely would. And
100%.
so it's the same exact thing with crocodiles. You just got to look at where they're at in their life cycle. Once they kind of hit that young adult stage, you don't need to feed them that much. And then as they get older, you can really reduce their calories down quite a bit, and they won't lose any weight or any condition, and they just, they do fine. So it just kind of depends where they're at in the life cycle. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you said the facility is open up to the public, but is it sort of like people can just come in, walk through on their own, or is
Yeah,
it only set up for tours?
we prefer to take a tour because it's a much better experience. That's when we do the feedings, all that kind of stuff. But for a lot of families, they bring young kids. They just want to look at some alligators and crocodiles and kangaroos and whatever. So they like to take the walk around. So
Kangaroos.
yeah, we have kangaroos and giant tortoises. We have antelope. I think there's 4 species of antelope back there, and we keep eland and wildebeest and waterbuck and black buck.
So
So
it's not, wow, fascinating. Okay, so it's not even just like a reptile zoo. This is just a
yeah, we keep some other things too. Just kind of, my wife will say you got to have this because after you've seen your 100th crocodile, you want to look at something else for a while. So it just kind of breaks it up a little bit.
that makes sense. Is it wild? Like, is it? I'm sure it's much very, very different. Is it a lot harder dealing with those kind of animals than it is the crocodiles?
Oh, yeah. Like
Yeah.
that also surprises people because the most dangerous animal we have out here is our male kangaroo. He's just a terror.
Yeah.
Just a horrible creature. And I mean,
Is it like that video of the one boxing?
yeah, very much like he's territorial. He's big. He's strong, and you can't go in there with him. I mean, you just can't. You without protective gear or something, and it's just
Wow.
or a team of people to go in there with you. But and of course, we keep eland. I mean, so our bull eland is probably, man, I don't know, he's probably 1,600 pounds or something like that. He can run 40 miles an hour, and he has horns. So you don't want to be in front of him ever.
It's called eland.
Eland, yeah.
Okay, wow.
It's a
Yeah.
big giant ant. Eland.
Yeah. I'm looking at a picture of them. Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Are you breeding all these people? Are you breeding the kangaroos as well?
Yeah, we breed kangaroos, we breed our antelope, and we do breed our antelope. Yeah. Actually, those are actually more, I would say, primary breeding programs for us in terms of like actually desiring the offspring than like some of these other ones because you just can't. There's not that many places to send crocodiles, even like Chinese alligators or like when we breed Temistum. I mean, we're probably going to limit how much we do there just because there's just so few places to send the animal.
Right.
It just because that's a big species. That's why now crocodiles. I mean, when they're born here, they stay here. I mean, we've sent them to other zoos and stuff like that. But I mean, if we don't have a zoo that they're going to, they stay here. So.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to limit what you do. But when it comes to eland or wildebeest or any of those things, like there's always a place for them to go if you need to surplus them out. And so it's just easier. And they're fun. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, almost every evening I go. The way our safari area works is that there's a hillside and it looks down over the coast where they're at. And I go out almost every evening, and that's my place of zen. And so I go
That's
out and
awesome.
I feed them, and they all come up, and I just turn the bucket over, and I just sit there on the hillside and watch them. It's really cool, you know. When the
Yeah,
sun's setting,
that's
to see
awesome.
those herds come in, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, herds. You have a lot of them.
Yeah, I think there's 7 eland. I think there's 8 black buck. There's a half a dozen water buck. There's a couple wildebeest. And when they all move together, it just looks like a little piece of Africa coming at you. You know, so it's pretty
That is
cool.
so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely crazy, 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 crazy. Yeah. Do you, okay, back to the. I guess this is a reptile podcast, so maybe we'll go back to the crocodiles. But do you do anything differently in the setups for between, like, let's say the Chinese alligators and the Nile crocodiles and the caimans or whatever, or just kind of all set up the same?
We follow the same basic patterns with them. Chinese alligators, of course, a much smaller enclosure. You know, than the Nile crocodiles, the saltwater crocodiles, the Orinoco crocodiles. They have really big enclosures. But other than enclosure size, we find that it's mostly the same basic rules. You know, they all get natural earth ponds. We try to shape them real natural. We kind of keep the front of the enclosure vegetation down just for viewing, but then the backside we let up so the crocodiles can move around in it if they want to, you know, recover and stuff like that. And so the rules are basically the same for them, you know, in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating, and you know, back to the again jumping. I'm all over the place on this episode, but this is just so cool. That they recognize you as well. Like, do if it was, I know you said they recognize humans and maybe they get freaked out if they're bigger groups, but if it was you walking in with the bucket of food versus, let's say, me walking in with a bucket of food,
Oh
could they
yeah,
tell the difference?
yeah, that's absolutely, they know for sure.
Wow. Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's got almost to the point now. We try to dissuade that here as a general rule because we have many guides, and the guides rotate around, and we want the crocodiles to respond to multiple guides. Otherwise, they would be waiting for one person forever.
Right.
But every once in a while, I get a crocodile. I tell everybody it's my personal crocodile, and nobody else feeds it, and they will not come if it's somebody else once they lock on. There was one in particular. He was my favorite one. He's actually on our logos and stuff. His name was Ajax, and he would not eat for anybody else. He was locked on me, just like, yeah, it was really cool. He was also a little bit of a pain because he would also lock on a certain food item that if you didn't have that one that day, he would not eat. He would just wait to. And he, like, Fred, there's something like he was iffy if he would eat chicken for you, but he loved giant slabs of beef. So he would literally spit out chicken that day, and you give him a slab of beef, and he'll eat the whole thing.
He'll eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super frustrating, but I love that crocodile.
So they're picky. They're picky, just like
Not
humans.
all. There's some that are really not picky, and there's other ones that are that can be picky. And he was one of the ones that was really picky. So gave him a
Yeah.
lot of character.
Yeah, and you said you like you've had Ajax for a while. How long do I guess is there like a retirement from the zoo where you take them off display, or do you just kind of
Not
let them
here.
live the
Here
rest of their
we're kind of, since they live natural lives, they live out their lives here. You know, so they're not in any kind of like if you came here and you see it's just basically just imagine a big pond with a lot of land around it and then a fence around that. And that's your enclosure for a lot of them, you know. So that's just big, and it's totally natural. I mean, it's just totally natural. The trees grow up around it. It's a totally natural environment. So
Yeah. Do you ever consider having I guess, or I'll use the word cohabbing for lack of better words, but do you ever consider cohabbing different species in with the crocodiles? I assume if you put the antelope in there, they'll try to eat them. But like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it just creates problems. You just manage it. So somewhere along the line it's not going to work, and you're going to end up having issues. And you know, when you have a lot of animals, the name of the game is really kind of to reduce the number of issues you have. You know,
for sure.
You know, because it's just so much can go wrong at any moment's time in the first place. There's no reason to kind of borrow any kind of any kind of trouble with it. You know, so
Yeah, yeah, like, and I assume it's the same thing for like alligators. They're all and crocodiles, all separated by species. They don't.
yeah, we have them all separated out. There is one pond we do have a crocodile with the alligators, and it's a temporary situation because we had changed. This pond was a crocodile pond, and when we changed it to alligators, there's this one holdout crocodile in there we just haven't been able to catch yet. And
Okay.
so it's in there. And it actually works pretty good because it allows us, they get along well and allows us to tell people the difference between the two when they're in there. So
Right.
when people can see them, and it's not a problem or anything. And so, but that's the only instance right now where we have something like that. So, and I will be taking care of that as soon as we can catch another crocodile.
Catch him. Yeah, I was wondering earlier on in the episode when you said that the American alligators were native in your range and they kind of just had to go over the place. I was wondering if you were just finding baby American alligators in like every pond around.
They tend to stay, and, they tend to stay around mom, and then we usually do pull them out of there once we. Last year we didn't though. We let them go, but we have a huge heron population that moves in here in the summer, and if you don't get them quick, the birds will get them.
Sorry, what species is it?
Herons.
Herons. Okay, cool. Yeah.
We have like a rookery here, and they nest in the trees above the alligators.
Wow.
So if the babies fall out of the tree, they get eaten by the alligators. But conversely, when the baby alligators are born, the herons can get them as well.
Yeah.
So it's just you don't really, if we don't get them soon, a lot of them are gonna get eaten. So
yeah, that's so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll start to wrap it up over here. But when you're collecting, they all come from different areas. So I assume when you're incubating the eggs, you're incubating them all at different temperatures as well, right?
There's actually for crocodilians, for the most part, there's kind of a mid-range. We incubate everything at 86 degrees, and our incubator is really big. It's actually sitting right back over here. I don't know if I can. That's the big incubator.
Awesome.
Right? So with the cat down there. But
yeah, he's been back and forth the whole episode. Yeah.
And so what we do is, depending on where you put them on the level in there, you get like a little different temperature. So if you want to get males or females or whatever, you put them wherever temperature range you want to get. So
I was about to ask you that. So they are TSD, I guess, like temperature, sex.
And we always try to incubate for females just because you really just don't need that many males. Males just cause you a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of territoriality. The females get along a lot better. Having said that, the last time we incubated, last year, I guess it was the year before, we had a spike in our incubator. We ended up with some males that should not have been there. And so we're just finding this out now because we assume their sex is female when they're born based on our incubation temperature.
Right.
But then we resex them again when they get a little bit larger where we can do a visual inspection. And we found out that, unfortunately, we actually do have quite a few males that should not be here. So we have sent them off to, like we sent some to St. Augustine Alligator Farm and such like that. So.
Yeah, and so is it... How are you sexing these alligators? Like I never even. It's not a tail structure, or is it?
Yeah. Once they get to be about 3.5 feet, you can take your finger and you can stick it in their cloaca. As glorifying as that, as wonderful as that sounds, and you can feel. And once you felt a few, it's pretty obvious, to be honest. Okay. When they're younger, we use a thing called a rhino. I think it's called a rhinoplasty. It's a tool you put in their cloaca and you push the thing on it, and it opens it up, and you can look for the hemipene there. That's semi-reliable because they also have a hemiclitoris, which in some of them is actually kind of large at that size. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a male who's kind of small and a female who's kind of big, well, you get kind of where you get
same thing.
That's why they want to resex when it's 3.5 feet again, just to be sure. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so we do like 3 stages. So we assume female, and then we recheck them again as they get older, And it's always a surprise. Every time we sex them and we find a male, every time it's, oh God, that incubator.
Yeah, it spiked again.
Yeah.
So. That's fascinating. And then so I've seen videos of like people going into alligator enclosures to collect eggs and the mother like being defensive. And then I've also seen videos of like a bunch of baby alligators around the mother, and you just said you kind of leave the baby American alligators in with their mother. Is there parental care? If you left the eggs, would they actually take care of the babies for a certain age, or how does it work?
They take the baby, they'll take the egg, they'll crush it a little bit, because the babies start pipping in the egg. It's actually one of the coolest things ever. Like in all keeping of reptiles, like, and my office is right here, so the incubator is right there, as I showed you. And I will hear those babies 5 days before they start getting ready, before they come out. You'll hear them. They'll start calling for their mother. And so I'll be sitting here and you see it, right there. And so the mother hears this also, and she'll stum up and she'll start digging through the nest that she made and she'll pick the egg out, but she gently kind of crushes it a little, opens it just a little bit so it cracks, and she takes that baby down into the water. So
Wow.
and then those babies will stay around mom. They can hang out for up to a year sometimes, and as long as they stay there, they just have the protection of her. And the ones that go off, well, they're on their own, but yeah, the mothers are really good. Actually, they're very protective of like that. If you during the time that she's actually guarding the nest, if you come close, they take a run at you every time.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that. Yeah. And if she catches something, I assume in the wild, not obviously not in captivity, or if you feed her something in captivity, will she like share it with the?
No, I haven't seen anything like that. I don't want to say they never do that, but generally they don't do a lot of feeding during this whole time. Like using our Chinese alligator as an example, I was out there trying to feed her, and she'll usually eat up till, because right now her body is swelling with eggs, and as the eggs start to solidify and she gets really full in there, she just doesn't have a lot of room for food. So you might get her to take like, whereas normally she would eat a rat, you may get her to take a mouse, but really as she gets closer to the time, you don't get her to eat much of anything, and then she'll dump those eggs out, and she'll usually. Sometimes she'll eat again pretty quick after the lay. But for the most part, while she's guarding that nest, she does not eat. I mean, she won't eat at all. They just sit there and stay vigilant, and if you so much as look at that nest wrong, I'm telling you, boom, right on, she's coming,
So crazy.
Chinese alligators kind of cute because they throw their whole selves at you, But when it's a Nile crocodile, it's a whole different animal because that's a pretty big animal coming at you right there,
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. When you're raiding, we always say like 3 people in to go raid the nests, and 2 of them keep the crocodile at bay, and the other person's frantically digging. And half the time there's fire ants in there, so you got to really be careful with those. And so
Wow.
it's always a fun time. Though,
I was gonna say that sounds like a lot of fun.
it is fun. It is, and like I said, we're probably not going to do much of it this year. We may do the Chinese alligators, but otherwise, this year we won't be hatching a lot. But it's always I look forward to when we do those T-positive albino ones because that's going to be a crazy thing just to see it come out of the egg. I just want to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Any concerns? Okay, and we'll actually wrap it up on this question. But any concerns with breeding the T-positive Nile albinos?
No, I mean, not in terms of like their health or anything like that. It's never really been done. Because where we get them from, they find them randomly. It's almost like finding an albino alligator. They just show up. Yeah. And just recently in America, in Florida, they've started to breed, albinos to albinos to create albinos. And so this particular cross with Nile crocodile has never been tried. And my friends in Africa, they think that it'll potentially create a leucistic animal. I don't know if I buy it, but it's definitely a project. We have 2 females and we have 3 males. And so it's definitely a project that will be interesting to see exactly what happens with it. I know I'm pretty excited about I wish I could make them all 8 feet right now just to take a run at it for the year, but we're probably a year away and maybe 2. I mean, I think maybe next year we can get. So I told my staff, I said, I want them to grow a lot this year because I would like to take a run at them, just to see, because I've had a 6-foot Nile crocodile lay eggs before that was a good nest, and so they're coming up on that now. So I do think we'll have a shot at least with one of them next year, So.
At least one of the pairs, yeah. So the original group is wild caught then?
No, farm. They're born on a farm.
Farmed, okay. Yeah,
there's skin farms over in Africa have like literally 100,000 crocodiles, and every once in a blue moon, one of these things just shows up. And so, I had a friend over there, and he would go ahead and he would find one. I'd say, I found one, and then the next year he'd find another one, and to make it worth your time to bring them in, you almost need to bring in a couple at a time.
Yeah.
It's just hard to. There's a lot of paperwork involved with it, and it's no guarantee they're going to give you the permit. It's just. You're dealing with Africa, you got to send them money, and it's just, you just never, you got to put your trust in them. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's fascinating. I look forward to see what comes out with that project and when the Garioles come in. And hopefully one day I can make a trip down to
you come on down from the land of snow and visit.
Yeah, I would love to. I'm sure it would be an incredible time. But if I come down, I'm going to come down during breeding season and try to help you pull some eggs.
What do you keep up there in Canada? What kind of reptiles do you keep?
I work with a lot of mountain horn dragons, so the Acanthora species. I'm working with 4 of them, and then a bunch of different geckos, smaller sand geckos and stuff like that. So the
Oh,
Stenodactylus and Pictus geckos and stuff
yeah, I
like that.
like
Yeah,
this. I think this is cool.
yeah, nothing big, nothing.
Well, one of my keepers actually just got some Pictus geckos here this last weekend. Actually, I've always liked those things. Those are really, really cool.
They are a lot of fun. I don't know why they're not more popular. I
Yeah,
find
they're
them,
cool.
I find them cooler looking than like leopard geckos
Yeah. Do they?
and
He
those
said
things.
they pair bond. Do they?
Sorry.
He said that he told me they pair bond or something. Is that
No,
true?
not that's not my experience with them. I have several females and several males, and I've swapped them around, and
They're fine.
I generally keep them separate, and then just pair them for when I want to breed them. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
Good
yeah.
for
They're awesome. Yeah, all the sand geckos are awesome. You should check out Stenodactylus as well. They're the tiny dwarf sand geckos.
Uh-huh.
They have little chirps, and they're awesome.
No, I love that stuff. I really do. I think that stuff's really, really cool, man. You know,
Yeah.
it's totally like sometimes you keep the big stuff, it's great, you know, because everybody oohs and ahs over it, but that little stuff just as cool.
Just as cool. Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's nice that there's a good balance of both in the hobby, right? Like I definitely, if I had the option of keeping outdoors, I don't know if I'd keep crocodiles, but I definitely like to keep some of the bigger monitors and stuff like that. But that's further down in when I'm no longer in
Monitors are a
freezing
lot
cold.
of fun. And they're really the nice thing about a big reptile, as I see it, and particularly monitors, is they're very interactive. You know,
Yes.
you kind of meet them on their terms. You know, whereas you're dealing with a little animal, it's always your terms. But the cool thing is you get to create really cool environments with them.
Yes.
In
smaller spaces as well.
In smaller spaces, and that's awesome. And there's a real value in that. But when you're dealing with a big animal, I don't know, it's just more of a meeting of the I don't know what to call it, the mind, so to speak. But it's an equality there almost.
A mutual respect.
Yeah, like with the interaction, because it's coming for you. He could hurt you, and there's a real balance there. It's a different experience, So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I like I said, I only keep some of the smaller stuff, but I have friends that keep like Savannah monitor. Like a friend keeps a Savannah monitor, and some of the more and just like even just feeding them a worm and seeing something click in the monitor's mind and realizing there's food there and it's coming towards you, and that interaction, you don't really get with some of the smaller species.
Right.
Like they notice it's food, they're gonna feed a worm off, they're gonna eat the worm off the tongue, but you don't see the excitement or the realization of what it is, or what I mean. And I think it's definitely a whole different side to reptile keeping, but it's I think it's also a very fascinating side to reptile keeping.
Oh yeah, very much so. I love all that stuff. I like the little things all the way to the big. If you're really a reptile person, man, there's hardly any part of it.
Exactly. That's true. It's all a matter of one day of when you can keep that species, when it fits right in the...
I can tell you, sometimes of the smaller stuff, I look at it and go, man, that must be nice not to have to have buildings just to drag them in when it gets cold. It must be nice just to turn the light off.
Yes.
Or something.
Definitely. I'm sure it's a lot easier than dealing with
crocodiles. There are times
I
go like, man, I should have just done that. That'd been great.
Yeah, absolutely. But
that Komodo dragon gives me a kiss. It's pretty freaking awesome,
Exactly. Waking up in the morning, walking outside, and just seeing crocodiles everywhere. That sounds like a dream.
I'll tell you the coolest part about that, and I know your thing is that with these alligators are really vocal, and so I don't know if you've ever heard the alligator bellow. I'm sure
I've seen videos of it. Yeah.
There are mornings you go out there and you walk out the door and they're all bellowing, and you think you're like in some primeval Jurassic Park. It's so loud, but it's the coolest thing ever. When once one starts, there's all these other ones start, and it's just all over the park. It's really, really cool.
Do you think it's a communication thing?
For sure. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah, the big bulls will start answering each other, and the females will answer the bulls. And what's super funny here is the Chinese alligators hear the American alligators, and the Chinese alligator bellow is very short and quick, but they answer them every time.
Answer them. That is awesome. Yeah,
it's really, really cool. So,
like you said, you've kind of built yourself your own little Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's just a manifestation of my own interest like that, and I guess I've been fortunate enough that I'm very lucky that a lot of people liked it as well. So it's become self-sustaining, and like I said, it was never intended. It just kind of developed like that on its own, and I'm pretty thankful for that. So it's been a blessing in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, if somebody is in Houston or visiting around the area, where can they find you and where can they find the zoo?
We're right south of Houston, about 25 minutes to the south. Then you just look at the website, crocodileencounter.com, and it tells you all the information you need on there. So.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll have that website and your Instagram in the description. Go give them a follow. Go check out the website. If you're in the area, like I said, make sure you go check it out. I know I'm going to definitely plan a trip to go down there and see it myself one day. But yeah, Chris, thank you very, very much for coming on and doing this. This was awesome.
Oh, no, I'm glad we finally hooked up, though. It was challenging, but I'm glad we did it. I had a great time. So
yeah, no, for sure. And hopefully maybe one day we can make it happen again.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll battle the schedules again.
It happens. All right. Well, I appreciate it, man. You have a great evening.
Thank you. You as well. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Awesome. And everyone else, thank you very much for listening. That was an awesome episode. Chris, once again, thank you very much for coming on, man. That was awesome. Go give Chris a follow. Thank you all for listening. We will see you on the next one.